What's up, everybody? You are listening to Come On Man, a 3% Man podcast. I'm your host, Paul Bauer, and I am on the road to being a 3% man just like you. If you're new to the show, this is a podcast for fellow students of Corey Wayne's book, How to Be a 3% Man, and for men who just want to be better in general. We talk about dating, gaining wealth, being happy, and using the law of attraction to get everything we want in life. Thank you for coming back for another week of Come On Man. This week is a really good episode. Before I get into what's in store for you, though, if you're listening on iTunes, please go ahead and give us a 5-star review. It helps more than you know. Be sure to like and fave on your favorite podcast platform of choice. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit those notifications. There we go. Those notifications, because apparently just subscriptions don't mean shit on YouTube. Who knows why? That's the dumbest thing ever. But hit those notifications so you know when we have new episodes. I have new episodes every week, if you didn't know that already. All right, this week, I actually had a lot of fun recording this. I had Evan from Performance Potential on TikTok. You guys may have heard of him, especially if you've followed me from TikTok. Evan has so much information. He's actually read How to Be a 3% Man, only once though, which is a damn shame. Corey would be so disappointed, but Evan's a dating coach himself, and he has just so much great advice. I've been following him for a long time. He's been in the TikTok game, a little bit longer than me, maybe a month or so longer than I have, but his following is astronomical just because he just gives so much value, and he gives value not only to men, but also to women as well. So I will be bringing you that conversation right after this. If you guys are anything like me, you're tired of going to grocery stores, buying grooming products that are designed for men, but they just suck, or they smell girly. I also hate going to expensive department stores like Macy's and getting cologne that makes me smell like a little bitch. I want to smell like a fucking man. And I think most women want their men to smell manly as well. And that's why I've partnered with Duke Cannon. Duke Cannon has products for men. They have products that make you smell manly as hell. They have big ass bars of soap. They have really thick body wash. They have beard oil and beard balm. Hair care products. My favorite is their big ass bar of soap. Smells like naval supremacy. It is awesome. And I also buy all of their liquid cologne. It really makes you smell manly, and they have tons of different fragrances. In fact, I have some for each day of the week. Also, when you purchase from Duke Cannon, some of your purchase goes to help out veterans. And if you use duke.comeonmanpod.com, link is in the description, you get free shipping. Win-win. This stuff smells so goddamn good, and the ladies love it. Trust me. Again, that's duke.comeonmanpod.com. The link is in the show notes. All right, some people are so famous, they only need one name. Cher, Fabio, Madonna. Well, today I have Evan from Performance Potential on TikTok. He's a very popular dating coach with a huge following. What's going on, Evan?
Hey, man, it's great to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, no, it's actually good that we've been in contact and that you're able to do this. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
You actually, I think, we were chatting the other day, and it seems to me that, although you've been doing the date coaching thing for a while now, you're pretty new to TikTok yourself, right? You just got on in what, December?
Yeah, it was middle of December. I think it's only been about, three months now, coming up on 3 months.
Yeah, that's not a lot of time. And you already have 130 or 40,000 followers or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it's sitting around a little bit 120 right now. So it's been pretty cool. I think, learning more about TikTok as a platform is encouraging, some pretty good growth opportunities, and then, just a lot of people looking for some help on there. So it's been good so far.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's really addicting. Not just scrolling all day. You end up wasting 4 hours of your day scrolling, but it's addicting. Making the TikToks, because they're so easy to create, and then some people ask questions. It's so easy to just go, oh, you know what? I'll just answer that real quick in a video. And yeah, I don't know. You could waste so much time with that app. So I put out today asking, some people if they had questions for you. Really only got like one response. I had, people say that they follow you, but one person, and it was Camellia, a dating coach herself on TikTok. She goes by cam.khs, and she wanted to know like what made you decide to start making these videos, right? Like, so I guess what just made you decide to get on TikTok to begin with?
So for me personally, the first part is why TikTok. So the reason why I chose TikTok is because right now it's absolutely the best social media platform to grow on, bar none. You can put a video out, a 30-second video that gets you a couple million views, and you can get tens of thousands of followers from that. So that's kind of part one why I chose TikTok. I really thought about YouTube, but really with YouTube, it's such a long form of content that it takes a lot of, a lot more back end work, video editing, things like that I really just don't have the time to do. So yeah, that's kind of why I chose TikTok, and really why I got into this space is I think for all of us personally, and you and I kind of spoke about this before, we all have kind of a journey when it comes to dating and relationships of understanding how everything works. And for me, that was kind of in my earlier 20s. So as I began to kind of master that myself and start to coach some other people, I realized that I think it's a space that just, not just men, but also women need help in too, because everyone's trying to figure out the other side. Men are trying to figure out what women are thinking, and women are trying to figure out what men are thinking. So I think it's a way to kind of bring the two together and, start educating some people who need help with that. So it's just something I'm passionate about, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think we were talking the other day about different books and stuff that we've read, and I was talking about Dr. Glover, and I think you said you're not super familiar with Dr. Robert Glover's books, but one of the things that he talks about is how there's a myth that women are naturally good at relationships, and he's like, but if you really step back and think about it, he goes, why do women always buy women's magazines that talk about relationships? Why do they watch shows like Oprah where they're trying to learn more about relationships if they're already naturally so good at it? And it's like, because they're not.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is. And what ends up happening is somebody could be really good at something, but then when they learn the hard way about, something along that journey, that makes them become very introspective and try to understand what actually happened to cause that, right? Like you could be a guy, I have a guy that I'm coaching right now. He's 42 years old. And he said, listen, my whole life, I've never had relationships, but there's this one girl as of late, all these things are happening and I just don't know what to do. And it actually turns out that all the things that she's doing are very common things for guys like you and I to hear, because we've been in this space for a while. But for him, just because he's had it easy his whole life, he gets this one challenge and he immediately gets thrust into, learning more about the dynamics between men and women.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah. Some people just, I don't know if it's luck or they're just born with some kind of charisma, but they are just sort of naturally good with women. They naturally, women are naturally drawn to them. But yeah, then there's going to be that one that, oh, Evan, I think you dropped off for a second there.
Sorry about that.
You're back.
There we go.
But yeah, there'll be one that throws them for a loop, or, gives them some kind of, shit test or strength test or however you want to phrase it. And they just don't know what to do with it, So yeah, absolutely. So another question that Camellia had was, how did you learn about, like women in relationships? Like, how did you become an expert so that you're a coach?
So I think it's a culmination of a lot of different things. I mean, you have education, your own experiences, the experiences of some of your clients. And I think there's a lot of different facets of all of those. Like education can be anything that you've learned in college from psychology. I mean, I studied psychology and criminology when I was in college. So a little bit related, a little bit unrelated for, the majors that I had. But for me personally, a lot of it came through, just reading and researching. Like obviously this is the Come On Man podcast. And I think Corey Wayne is obviously somebody that a lot of guys look up to and they've learned from. I think also once you start to explain to people who might be a few steps behind you in your journey that need help getting to where you are, then you start to learn more about them. So over the past couple of years, just working with, dozens of clients, you start to hear different nuances of their stories and then applying it to how you see it working. So I think just as time goes on, you start to get more information on it. So I would say it's a combination of my own experiences, my education, and just the clients that I work with personally. But yeah, I think in terms of, where I started, I think every guy starts in their journey on understanding dating and relationships by meeting a woman that they really like and just having it not go well. And you start to kind of peel back the layers of the onion. You're like, why is this not working? Like, I did everything right. When in reality, what most guys are taught of doing things right is the very opposite of what it would be to do things right. Like in my mind, when you're doing something right, you're getting good results. Not, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're getting good results from what you're doing because you're doing it right, as opposed to I'm doing all these things right, but never getting the right results. Well, you're not doing it right. That's kind of the big difference. And I think what most men, understand, hopefully, as their journey through understanding like dating and relationships and women is that what you see in fairy tales and storybooks and everything like that is not really how it pans out in the real world.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So many guys come on the podcast. Because we talk about, you mentioned Corey Wayne. This podcast sort of was born from the 3% Man book, which was also created the 3% Man Facebook group, which this whole podcast is just, a product of all that. And almost every guy that comes on the show talks about how they discovered the book and basically just this sort of journey because they had some kind of failed relationship and they always say, oh, I gave her everything. I did everything for her. And I did. And it's like, but why didn't
you hear the term, I did everything right. I hear that term all the time. Yeah. Man, I did everything right, but I don't know what happened. I'm like, well, man, you didn't do everything right.
Yeah, you clearly
That's the difference. That's the difference. And then it takes, the problem is people don't learn when things are easy. People learn when things suck and when things are hard and when you get outside the comfort zone and when you get dumped or, you get blown off or you get ghosted and all these things. Like, you start to learn, not when it happens once, but when it happens a couple times or when it happens with a woman that you really wanted. That's when you learn. It's the same way with women. Women are hung up on their exes all the time. Women are hung up on these toxic guys that didn't treat them right because every other guy who is in their DMs obsessed with them. That's how they think they should be treated. So when you have this one guy who came along and didn't treat her that way, she's like, well, what did I do wrong? Or what's wrong with this guy? And then that starts the self-reflection journey for women. So it's very similar on both sides, but the commonality is that they're learning from a hardship that they've experienced because things are no longer easy. They can't just coast and, go by on their good looks.
Yeah. And another thing I find too, especially in the comment section of TikTok, is that a lot of people want to blame other people. They're like, this relationship failed because that woman's a bitch, or this guy's no good, he's trash. And it's like, I should say very few people take the self-reflection and go, what did I do wrong? Like, what could I do better? And like, I think those are the few people that seek out people like you, like a dating coach, or they start reading books and stuff like that to try to figure out what they could do better in the future with other partners and stuff like that.
And I've kind of got a brief opinion on that too, because I think when you're in the dating and relationship space, there's a lot of, I guess I'll say like communities of men and women on both sides. Like, you have Red Pill and you have MGTOW and you have all these different opinions. Now, the thing is, whether people see dating and relationships, or I'll say dating more specifically as a game, or, as something you need to understand how to work. If you're somebody who takes the approach where you are then out of the game and you're deciding that you no longer want to try to date women because you don't agree with the things that women do, you've kind of essentially given up. And the other thing is too, like, it's really not as much of a game as people think. It's a game when you pursue the people that are not interested in you. When you pursue women that have relatively high interest in you, it's not a game. It's just a game of not screwing it up. That's really what it comes down to. Like, get out of your own way, don't mess it up, and it's going to work out well. So this whole, like, we're going our own way, like women are awful, that you're just not doing it right. That's the difference. And people who get very frustrated with those things, or frustrated at me when I say that, like, first off, I don't care, because I don't have a problem with women and I've understood how to get along with women to avoid the games. The second thing is, like, instead of getting better, you gave up. That's my opinion on that. I don't know. Some guys will get pissed at me for saying that. I don't care.
Well, I say it all the time. I have TikTok videos where I talk about MGTOW guys, and I'm pretty blunt in my videos. Like, I don't think you use a lot of profanity in your videos, but I clearly do. But that's because I used to be a sailor, so I'm a professional.
There you go. Mouth like a sailor.
I call those guys, I'm like, you guys are fucking quitters. You guys there's no other way around it. You guys don't you suck at it, and so you just say fuck it, I'm gonna take my ball and go home. And no one likes a quitter, and there's just no way to, you're never going to win in life if you're just going to be a constant quitter when you just give up on things like that. And then when I put out those videos that, oh man, I get slammed with the MGTOW guys going, well, how is it quitting when it's a rigged game to begin? It's like, you just got a shitty mentality, man. I'm never going to convince you.
Yeah, you and I agree on that. The other thing is too, if you think about just marriage, long-term relationships, divorces, things like that, statistically, you're gonna run into more people that aren't a good match for you than they are. And sometimes I'll get comments on videos like, man, you're talking about all these things to look out for and like the negatives. I'm like, yeah, because if you find somebody that passes these tests or doesn't check all these boxes or show all these red flags, that's great. You've got somebody that's a good personality match for you. Move forward and try to have a relationship. If it was easy to get in a long-term relationship and be happy, everybody would be in a relationship. It's not easy at all. And nothing that's worth it is easy. So instead of giving up and crying and quitting, be more patient, which men is my number one piece of advice for men. Be more patient and pick the right person. And then that way you won't have this negative feedback loop in your head that every time I meet a woman, it doesn't work. Well, just because she's attractive doesn't mean she's good for you. And that's what I really hope that men can start to understand.
Oh, no, definitely. Another thing too, you did a video, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago, where you're talking about, because I get this all the time too, especially if I'm talking about red flags or if I'm talking about, I don't know, needy women or weeding out women that aren't good for you and stuff like that. I get a lot of people, men and women, that are like, well, that's why you're still single, or stuff like that, like it's a bad thing. And you did a video talking about, well, why are dating coaches oftentimes single? And you're like, because they have high standards, they know what they want, stuff like that. And a lot of people, I don't know, I feel like they try to gauge success on whether or not you're in a relationship or if you're married or not. But it's like a lot of people rush into those relationships. They settle for less than, they really want. And then they end up breaking up or getting divorced anyway. So I feel like being more selective, not overlooking red flags and stuff like that, and taking your time getting into a relationship is a much smarter way to go. You have a less likelihood of getting divorced or breaking up or whatever. If you go that route, you go for quality over quantity, I guess is what I'm saying. Is that what your point was in that particular video?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more as you start to understand kind of the dynamic between men and women and dating. There's a lot more awareness on certain things, and as opposed to talking to somebody for maybe 3 or 4 months, that you're in maybe the earlier stages of your understanding of just the dynamics between men and women. Maybe you're not very aware of certain things. You could go 3 or 4 months just getting to know somebody, whereas in a second or third date, I'm trying to help my clients and myself personally get to a point by second or third date, if somebody's right for you or not. Like, and I'm not saying you go there with this list of things that you need. It's not about that. It's not about being overly picky or overly particular. It starts before you even meet up. If guys like you and I went on a date with every girl who ever swiped right on our profile or liked our profile or was interested in us, we would be out of a lot of money. We would be very annoyed, and it would be a waste of our time. I only date certain women based on, what do they do? How do they act? How do they text? How do they respond? Are they nice? Are they giving? Are they caring? I'm looking for those things before I meet up with somebody and after first date to understand if that's a person that's going to be good for me. So I've ended a lot more, dating situations within the first couple of weeks than I would have in the past, because I realize what I'm looking for and whether it's going to be a right match. So I think that kind of awareness is maybe something that keeps a lot of dating coaches single. And it's also the mentality, and you and I talked about this the other day, is about not having a scarcity mentality where I'm so worried that I'm going to be alone forever. Like, guys like us know that we have a lot to offer. So why would I be scared of being single? It's not a bad thing. I don't know, people, and I'm sure you get these comments. It's like, yeah, keep doing this. That's why you're single. Stay single. It's like, I'm happy single. I've been happy in relationships. It's not I don't know. I don't get rattled by something like that. I don't care. Like, I'm happy with myself. It's like, I'm in a good spot. Like, yeah, I'm having a good time.
Yeah. If you're not happy with your own company, you're not going to be happy in a relationship anyway. You're like, too many people.
Yeah. And I think you said that before. Yeah. You're not going to use a relationship as a crutch. when you're not feeling good about what it is that you're working on.
Yeah, I mean, well, I've been that guy. I think a lot of us have, where you just feel like this empty void when you don't have someone. So then you're just, that's all, it consumes you trying to lock down that next relationship. And, a lot of people, I feel like in the dating world, they hate dating because they'll pursue that one person. And then, after maybe 2 or 3 dates or whatever, the other person ghosts them or whatever. And they're just like completely crushed by it. It's like, well, you wouldn't be if you're dating multiple people, for one. It too, if you realize that there's plenty of other people out there, like, who gives a crap, you wouldn't care.
And there were probably a lot of other signs that they missed on the way to getting ghosted. Like, for instance, it's very difficult. Like when I take on a new client, or I'm speaking with a guy who's just starting the dating process, I have to find out very quickly, because you only have a limited amount of time on meetings, what this guy's approach is to when he starts dating somebody. And 9 out of 10 times, I'm like, okay, how often do you talk? And like, oh, we're texting 24/7. I'm like, man, why don't you go hang out with them? They're like, oh, we hung out. I'm like, okay, but you're hanging out and texting them 24/7. I'm like, do you do anything? Like, do you do anything outside of just talking to her? Like, you have a job? Do you go to school? Are you busy? Do you have a hobby? Are you working on yourself? It's like, yeah, I do those things, but I'm like, then why are you on your phone 24/7? It's not about playing games. It's about genuinely being busy. Like, I don't have time to text somebody 24/7. I'm sure you don't either. It's about just genuinely being busy and working on stuff, and like hanging out when you can, and building a relationship over time, and having patience.
Mm-hmm. No, I get that. Well, what's funny too is I did a video on, they call it mirror game. You're probably familiar with it, mirror game, where, you basically match and mirror their effort when it comes to communication. And one thing a lot of people hate that, because like, well, that's game playing, which it is. But what I feel like it teaches guys especially guys that are used to texting women 24/7, it teaches them to back off a little bit and to focus on their purpose a little bit. Cause it's like, okay, if you, instead of texting her back right away, you set a timer for 2 hours. Now you got to stay busy with something else besides your stupid phone. And then eventually it just becomes natural to just be busy, so it's almost like a training technique more than it is game playing, in my opinion.
And it's also like, to your point, you kind of, if every time you text somebody, they're answering you every 3 or 4 hours, to be honest, either they are genuinely that busy, which is a little bit more rare because everybody's on their phone. So they're either not that interested or they're playing games. And I would never teach somebody to pursue somebody that's either not interested or playing games, especially that early on. Like, maybe if you want to talk a lot early on, get to know each other as you're building that up, great. But as you get more comfortable, you shouldn't have to text somebody 24/7. So it's one of those things where, like, if they're doing that from day one, I recommend, like you said earlier, you should be dating other people if it's very early on. You should be dating other people, and you should be prioritizing the people that prioritize you. And if they don't, then you're fighting a losing battle. You really are.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's really well said. Yeah, definitely. So let's get back to your how you started learning about this stuff, because I'm curious too. We talked about Corey Wayne. You're familiar with 3% Man. You've read the book, right?
Yeah. Yep.
How many times have you read the book?
I read it once. Corey would kill me.
Oh, he would destroy you for that.
He would kill me. Be like, you didn't read it 15 times. What are you doing, man?
That's fine.
10 to 15 times. 10 to 15 times.
It's fine. I don't blame you for that, because you have a good grasp on this stuff anyway. And there's some books that I've read in the space where I'm like, yeah, I'll read that multiple times. There's other books I've read in the space, I'm like, that's a one and done. It was good information, but I'm never going to read that again. I feel like The Rational Male is one of those. Like, there's some guys that are just, they love The Rational Male, and I'm like, it's good to know knowledge, but it's not something that you should read 10 to 15 times. I don't know.
Yeah.
What other are there any other books that you've read in the space?
So actually, I think this was probably a month or so ago. I think you and I were DMing, and I had brought up, it was a book by Suzanne Banker. It's like the alpha female's guide to dating or marriage. I forget what the full name of the book is. And I read most of that, but I find it interesting. Well, the first thing is, I think people usually read things that kind of fluff their confirmation bias. Like, if you're a red pill or a MGTOW guy, sure, you're going to go read everything that has to do with why women play games and why it's so hard. And you're just constantly going, fluffing your ego and saying, yeah, I was right. I was right. This is so hard. I'm going to give up. Whereas you got to read something that makes you think a little bit differently. So the reason why I read that book is it's interesting because it's from a woman's perspective, but it's from a woman's perspective who had gone most of her life and had a very, masculine figure as her mother, right? Her mother was very hardworking, was very, alpha female type, and it caused some issues in her marriages and relationships. But she personally picked up on a lot of those things and traits from her mother and had to unlearn a lot of those things, right? Like there's nothing wrong with working hard. There's nothing wrong with making a lot of money. But if you don't have any polarity in your relationship, like if you have two masculine figures in your relationship and you think that's going to work out, it's not. And that's why I think a lot of women are frustrated now. And I'm not going to say it's feminism because I think that there's so many definitions of what feminism is and how it's supposed to apply in modern day society. So I'm not going to say it's feminism. I think it's the fact that most people don't want there to be any inherent differences between men and women, which leaves men frustrated and it leaves women confused because men are like, I'm not getting from her what I want. Like I want more of a traditional woman. And she's frustrated because she's like, I'm doing everything society has told me to do and I'm doing it better because women are amazing and women are great at what they do, especially in the workplace. Like I work with a lot of amazing women. But when you get to the point where you can't take that persona off in a relationship or kind of calm down, and this goes for men too, it causes a lot of problems in relationships. Like for most men, I think they would agree that even if your wife is an amazing businesswoman, amazing career woman, and she makes a lot of money, if you do as well, then you're both bringing the same thing to the table. And there's really no polarity between what you're doing. And a lot of times it just causes a competition, causes people to feel insecure and butt heads. And I don't know. So that's why that book was interesting to me because it was written from her perspective as someone who had gone through a lot of their life dating and relationships and been frustrated because she just felt that there was, she was sold this kind of lie, I guess, by society that didn't exactly serve her.
Got it. And going back to red pill type stuff. Cause I look at red pill type information as it's very useful. It's useful to know. I kind of fall more in the lines of purple pill, like right in the middle of the road.
Me too.
I feel like there's some good things on both sides. I personally like relationships. I don't want to be a permanent plate spinner for the rest of my life. I don't think all women are trash, so, that being said, I'm trying to think. I had a point I was going to go with this. So, oh yes, that's what I wanted to say. So a lot of the stuff about red pill is the theory of women, and are hypergamous in nature, right? They tend to want to marry up. They want to date up. They want a guy who's higher status than them. And you talk about like polarity and stuff like that. There's a whole slew of women out there that, are career driven, maybe they're doctors or they became lawyers and they spent their whole lives, really building that career. And now they're like making gobs of money and stuff like that. And then they're frustrated on the dating circuit because nobody wants to date them. I don't know. Have you ran into that in your practice? Like where you have these women that are like, I don't know, like no one wants to date me because like I'm too successful and I can't find guys that are more successful than me. And
yeah, so I would say a lot of the women that I personally coach, it's kind of a weird intermediary. It's women who are in their early 20s at the beginning of this is the first time that I've gotten hurt and I need to figure it out. And then and for some reason I don't have a lot of women between like 24 and 28. I don't know why. Maybe they're figuring out having a good time. And then the second demographic of women that I coach and I work with will be in, their very late 20s or early 30s, because they're starting to realize that like, hey, listen, I do want to settle down now. And I'm having some difficulties with this. They understand that if I want to get married and have children, I got to be doing it soon. So if that's their goal, they're kind of figuring out like, I'm talking to these two guys, which one's the best? How do I sort through what a good guy is? How do I make sure I don't mess up this situation? So they're being vulnerable about it. They're asking for help, which anybody will respect. So I will say personally, I think a lot of career women that I've dealt with or coached, I think that there is an inherent frustration sometimes with the men that they're dating, but it's also like they're not going to give up their stance. on the topic. And I don't want to change their stance on it either, because it's not like I can give information and I can push someone in a direction, but I'm never going to tell them. Like, I'm not going to be like, you can't do this, you can't do that, unless they're doing something toxic or they're playing games or being whatever. It's just very difficult as a guy to tell a woman like, oh, this mentality and this whatever you're doing in career is threatening to the guy you're talking to, because they're like, then he needs to get over it. I'm like, you're right, he does need to get over it. So find a guy who will get over it. Mm-hmm. And they don't like that answer because they know they've got to go back to the drawing board. It's like there's really not much else to say in between that. And I know plenty of guys, especially in my personal life, that are dating women that make more than them. And although it might make them feel a little bit uncomfortable, they just deal with it. And I know it makes them feel uncomfortable. And that's a sociological thing. Men have been conditioned that they should be the breadwinners and they should be the boss and everything like that. But in 2021, I don't know, things are jumbled up, man.
I think it's funny though, because I experienced this growing up. Where women that do end up making more than their men, like, eventually start resenting their man. It's like, because they feel like, they're like, oh, I'm a strong, independent woman. But then at the end of the day, they're like, why isn't he doing better? And, because my dad, bless his heart, he was one of those guys that didn't go to college. And this was back when I think like college was a little more important, but like he did like a year in college and was like, it's not for me. And then basically struggled his whole life just doing menial jobs. And my mom she got her associate's degree. It's not like she's a doctor or anything, but she went and became a nurse. But she always made more money than my dad. And she made sure we fucking knew about it. She was like, I'm the breadwinner in this house and stuff like that. And then like growing older, they're still together, but I feel like they're together out of spite more than anything.
Yeah.
But my mom's still very much like, I was the breadwinner. Like, yeah, Mom, I know, I get it. It's so
it's very emasculating, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. So, I can definitely see like how women, might struggle in the dating scene if they've went their whole life, pursuing that career. And now it's like, oh crap, I've done better.
And Paul, think about this too. So right now, I don't think in terms of just earnings and, inclusion in the workplace and everything, that I don't think women have ever been as financially successful as they are today. And I will say some of the women, not necessarily my clients, but some of the women I know in my personal lives that are, in their late 20s, they're very attractive, they're very single, and they make a lot of money. They're extremely unhappy. Mm-hmm. They're extremely unhappy because what's happening is they're dating guys who are like doing this. And it could be such a long topic that I won't go into the whole thing on.
We got time.
All right, perfect. So we both know that the minority of men get the majority of women. So here's the thing. If you are a successful woman, you're only going to want to date a guy who is as successful as you or better. Clearly, as a man, I wouldn't want to date someone who wasn't, mover and shaker as well. So it's fair. Applies to both. Okay. So you're a woman who's 28, extremely attractive, makes a lot of money, live in a great city. Well, you're only going to date up. You're not going to date a guy who's like making nothing, not motivated, not doing anything with his life. Okay, cool. You've now tapped in to the top 5-10% of whatever guys, top 3%, if you want to be 3% man, top 3%, whatever of men. Well, guess what? Those guys control the vast majority of options with women. And most men with options don't want to settle down. So the funny thing is, I won't say funny, the unfortunate thing is for women who are in their late 20s, early 30s, very successful, and everything is great on paper, are oftentimes the most frustrated because they're going after the top tier guys, whereas the top tier guys have their pick of the litter at all times, don't want to settle down and don't need to settle down at their age. Whereas the women who are like, I've been taught that I'm strong, independent, don't need no man. I'm coming to a point where I want a man, and every man that I go after won't settle down. Hence the all men are trash thing. Because what happens is you're pursuing the men to have all the options. And again, this is kind of a Jordan Peterson thing. I kind of respect what he says in this. And I think through like just as a guy goes through his like single phases and understanding as he gets older, just because a guy has unlimited access to sex doesn't mean he should take it. Right? There's nothing admirable about just sleeping with every woman who will sleep with you. There is something admirable about being a guy who can sleep with many women and not doing it. So I think that's where the difference comes in. If you think about what percentage of the top 5% that might be, you're talking about less than 1%. So now think back to the beginning of what I was saying, why women who are 28, single, make a lot of money, really attractive, why they are unhappy. Because they want this top 1/10% guy, which I'll probably tell you, if they have a great personality and they're awesome outside of their work, they probably deserve, because they're that attractive, they're that smart, they're that whatever. But it's just hard to get. Statistically, it's just hard to get. So that's why I think a lot of women who are just, doing well on paper at their late 20s and early 30s are so frustrated with men, because every guy that they get is not settling down because he feels like he doesn't have to settle down.
Yeah, no, that makes sense too. And also, not to sound too red pill, but like, yeah, women have a little bit more of a biological clock that they're racing than guys do. So guys that are, so women that are 28 and they're trying to date guys close to their same age, of course those guys don't want to settle down, especially if they're super successful in their career. Why would they want to stop what they're doing to have kids and stuff like that when they can easily do that into their 40s, 50s if they want? And women
it's tough.
Yeah.
And it's a reality, man. Like, and it's one of those things. It's just like, it just kind of is the way that it is. And the reason why I think that is because a lot of guys who have options, who either don't want to settle down or they don't want to stop sleeping around with their options, it's because a lot of guys never experienced that. Guys had to work to get there. Women don't need to work hard to get access to a lot of guys who want to sleep with them. If you're an attractive woman and you go to the bar and you want to sleep with a guy, it's not hard. Like, it can happen. So it's one of those things where guys kind of grow up realizing they've got to do all this work and figure it out, and then I'll be attractive to women. And then they dig in, they do it, and they realize to an extent that it works. Then they're like, oh, this is awesome, newfound success. I want to date all these women. I want to have access to sleeping with women, things like that. Whereas women, their whole lives have known that men are sexually interested in them because they have so many people texting them, DMing them, and telling them they're beautiful. Men don't have that. So it's like newfound success for men when they get these options. And that's when you get the whole all men are trash thing, and guys are pigs and guys won't settle down, because to an extent it's true, but it's only a certain percentage of men. The sad thing is when you lump in all men are trash, then and you're a nice guy, then you just really lose, because nice guys are not. And nice guys get lumped into this whole thing where women have trust issues and they don't want to talk to a guy because they assume they're going to get screwed over.
Let's go off on nice guys a little bit, because I do a lot of videos on why nice guys finish last. But I mean, you probably see this as a dating coach. I mean, a lot of nice guys will hire dating coaches because they're like, what am I doing wrong? Why? Like, I'm such a nice guy. Like, what's going on? So do you want to dive into that a little bit?
Sure. So I think women and men and everybody has a different definition of what a nice guy is. Because a lot of times if I do videos about nice guys, the top comments I'll get will be, well, he was just acting nice, but he's not really a nice guy. Or he was a nice guy just because he was trying to sleep with me. And then he was not nice. And then there's like the camp of people who see nice guys as kind of the needy guys, the guys who are, very like, I need a relationship. I'm going to validate women every time I get a chance, things like that. So I feel like the nice guy paradigm in my book is not a guy that's nice with an agenda. He's just been raised and brought up to obviously respect women like we all should, treat them well and put them first. That's what a nice guy is to me, a guy who puts women before himself, before, his career, his success, things like that. That's what I would deem as a nice guy. And I think nice guys fail because when they receive pushback and kind of rejection, or a woman getting cold on him, they try much harder because they're like, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And they take a lot of ownership, but they take ownership for the wrong things. They take ownership for things that are not in their control. They say, she left me because it was my fault. She left me because I wasn't good enough. I didn't try hard enough. So that's where nice guys really make a mistake. They are hung up on emotionally unavailable women, or women who are hung up on another guy, and they think it was their fault that happened. When in reality, she just liked somebody else more, or she just wasn't physically attracted to you.
Got it. Okay. I feel like, there's a really good book by Dr. Glover called No More Mr. Nice Guy that I talk about a lot too. And he talks about like a little bit of mix of both those things, right? About how nice guys often are very dishonest. You know, they act like they don't want women just for sex. They act like, you know, they put women on a pedestal really just, you know, to kiss up to them so that the women will take pity on them and stuff and have sex with them. And they try to go that route and they just don't go for what they want, and then they blame the women when they don't get what they want. So there's a little bit of that in that book too. And then also there's a whole thing where women just, you know, they look at these guys not only as needy but also as weak. You know, these guys come across too nice, they're pushovers, they do whatever she says without questioning it, and she can walk all over them. And she's like, well, geez, if I can walk all over you, how are you going to stand up for me when I need you to? You know, so
Yep.
there's that whole philosophy too, which I think is hilarious, because there's all these videos of women talking about, why can't I find a guy like this and stuff like that. And I almost always do a stitch with those, saying, oh, you've met these guys, they're in your friend zone, you know.
They're in your DMs right now.
Yeah.
You know that. But again, like I'll never tell somebody to pursue or be attracted to somebody they're not physically attracted to. So I get it. You know, it's just like
Sure.
I'll never fault a woman or a woman that I coach for, you know, not giving a nice guy who she's not attracted to a chance. But I will fault her for saying like, oh, he was too much. He was too much. I'm like, were you attracted to him? She's like, yeah, physically. I'm like, then he's not too much. He was just treating you as if the way you say you want to be treated in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. There's a lot that goes into that. It's like there's a difference between what you say you want, what you actually want.
Yeah, definitely. There's it's so funny. That's another thing too, that it took me years to learn. I mean, really, I just started learning this stuff like last year, because, you know, I got out of, you know, some bad relationships, and then you know, and then I was on the dating circuit and just, you know, couldn't keep chicks around for more than a couple dates. And I was just like, what am I doing wrong here? And I realized that, you know, women oftentimes say they want certain things, but respond to something completely different. And it's really more important to just sort of watch what they respond to, as opposed to what they say, they like listening to what they say they want.
Yep.
So
Actions over words for sure.
yeah, it's super counterintuitive. So another thing that I get, and I don't know if you get this in the comments at all. I mean, you talk about you don't typically like to, you know, teach men to play games and stuff like that, because they really shouldn't. If they're pursuing someone that has genuine interest, there really is no need for game playing and stuff like that. But I get so many complaints from women about gameplay and, oh, that's just playing games and stuff like that, as if women don't play games. Now, you and I talked about this a little bit on the phone yesterday, but women absolutely play games. Like, what are some examples of games that you've seen women play or you've heard them doing that you would
Yep.
consider being total games?
Okay. So the number one thing, like dig in, pull up a chair. The number one thing that women do, and they'll readily admit this, is how often they text. Women do not text you when they want to text you. I promise. I promise. I would say my clients 50-50 men and women, 50-50. And women, they're always like, well, okay, it was this much after the date and I still haven't texted him yet. I want to text him, but you know, I just want to make sure I give it that like 2 or 3 days. I want to make sure I give it this time. And I'm like, why do you want to do that? And they're like, oh, it's just what kind of what we've been told to do. And I don't know who they learned it from, right?
Mom.
Like I don't really know. Yeah, their grandmother or something. I don't know who they learned it to, or who they learned it from, or what material women are following right now. I mean, obviously men follow certain people and coaches, and I don't know really who women follow. Sometimes they tell me and they'll be like, can you go check out this page? Let me know what you think about her. Let me know what you think about him. And I'll kind of get my feedback on that. But yeah, I think texting definitely is number one. Communication before a first date. Now, there's a lot of weird expectations. It's like some women still kind of they expect if a guy is like nice and traditional that he's going to pick her up for the first date. And I've only come across that a couple of times. Like I had somebody, this is like 3 or 4 months ago. She texted me, and she lived pretty close to the bar we were meeting at, and she was like, "Oh, I live pretty close. Are you going to come pick me up, or do you want to just meet there?" And I had to think about this one for a little bit because I'm a very big let's meet there and figure it out kind of guy. And there's a couple reasons for that I'll get to in a second. But I kind of realized that her asking me that was more of a test. Now I thought about it and I said to myself, if she's asking me to pick her up, that's actually a good thing. Number one, she's comfortable with me. And number two, she might be looking for something a little bit more traditional, which if I'm going to get into a relationship, I'm kind of into that. So I'm like, I thought about it, I gave it an hour or two because I really want to give a good answer here. I was like, I'd be happy to pick you up. And she was like, okay, cool. Now, the reason why I don't usually do picking up on the first date is because when we're getting there, I don't want the first interaction that her and I have to be like sitting side profile in my car. I think it's awkward. I don't want someone, the first interaction I have with them to not be, because I'm tall. So I like want to walk up, meet you, tall presence, right? Good energy. I don't want to be getting out of my car. Second thing is women might ask you to pick them up because they're going to judge you based on what you're driving. I drive a decent car, so there's nothing wrong with that. So I don't like the first interaction being side to side. I think it's kind of weird. I don't like it because I think they're kind of just like seeing if I'm driving a nice car or not. And the third reason why I don't like it is I like the flexibility of not picking them up. It makes them feel more comfortable to stay or to leave. And I want them to have that comfort factor because when they decide to stay, they're making the conscious commitment that I want to spend more time with this guy and I might even want to hook up with this guy. So if you think about the cadence of a first date, an ideal first date, we start one place, have a drink or two if they like to drink, go to a second place, either like get a bite to eat if we didn't at the first place, second place. But I like there to be a dynamic. Like we started here, we're going here. And then after the second date, if they're still hanging out and they drove, if they want to come back to my place, that is totally their decision. They're not dependent on me to get home. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want there to be weird inherent pressure. I want them to be determining that they are making the decision to come back with me. I don't want them to feel like, oh, he's driving me, so I have to listen to what he's saying. And I don't know. So I think that's kind of a like the pre-first date games, as women will play games a little bit. They'll kind of push back on where what you like and what you don't like and where you want to go and where they would prefer to go. I'm very big on picking a place. And if you like wine, we're going to go to this wine bar. And it just kind of is what it is. Like, are you going to be cool and go with it? Or are you going to, I don't know, give me pushback before the first date? I'm curious to see. And then I will say women will play games with what they post on their social media, their stories. They'll post things with other guys. They'll post things with a kind of a guy in the background or like a dinner menu with something behind the dinner menu to make a guy think like, oh, I'm out on a date with somebody else. So women play a lot of games and they know that they do it on purpose because they want to test. They want to test for your interest. I don't want to say they would test for your strength because a lot of guys say they test for your strength. They're testing for your interest. Mm-hmm. And too much interest is a sign of weakness because it's a sign that you don't have other options. So there are definitely a lot of games that women play.
Got it. I just did a video about some things that women do too on dating apps. You know, a lot of women, one of the guys that follows me, he put it perfectly. He says a lot of women are on dating apps and they treat it like it's Candy Crush. You know, they're just doing it because it's their own amusement. They like that free validation. They have zero intention of going out with guys. And like, clearly those women are time wasters and stuff like that. And one of the things that I don't like, and I will end it quickly, is if we're bantering back and forth and I go to set that definite date, I would say 90% of women are cool with, you know, after that little bit of back and forth, they're cool to meet up. In fact, a lot of guys just want to text for like 2 weeks before even asking them to meet up in person. And a lot of women get turned off by that. But occasionally I'll run into women that want to just text like indefinitely, or they want to text for 2 weeks before they feel comfortable meeting up. And so like last night I matched with this chick on Tinder, and she started asking me some questions. And so I was answering them. There's some quick questions. I asked her some questions back, and then she asked me like a really, like one of those questions that, you know, it's just going to be a really lengthy text exchange. And usually if you're going to ask me a really long story type question like that, that's an in-person type question. And I usually use that as a segue to set the date. So I'll go, oh, well, that's more of an in-person type question. I'm happy to answer that. When are you free to get together? And most of the time women are cool with that. And then, we can set up a date. This chick this was at like 8 p.m. last night. So it wasn't even that late. And all of a sudden she just stops texting. And I'm like, okay, well, you'll either get back to me.
I've actually got a piece of advice for you on this one, because I've seen this before. Here's my advice on this one.
Well, let's get back to that. I'll tell you what I did.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just waited. She finally texted me back this morning at like 8 a.m. She goes, well, why don't I put a pin in that? I want to make sure that you can make me laugh first. So keep talking. Oh. And so I just got up this morning. I saw that. And I just unmatched her ass. Okay, so what's your what's your piece of advice?
You're cutthroat, man. You're out of here. Done. My advice on that one, because I've seen this before. Now, I think you can test the waters there for commitment as well, right? Because what I think women don't like sometimes is when you're like, well, with that said, to do that, we should do that when we meet in person. Like, I think that'll work sometimes, but it might not work all the time. So usually what I would do is I would be like, yeah, that's a good question. When we actually meet up, I can give you the long answer to that, but here's the short answer. So that way there's not pressure on it, and you're giving her like a little bit of a contingency, but you're also testing to see if she's going to be receptive to that. Because if she's like, oh, that makes more sense, haha, I'd be happy to talk more about that, then you know that she's down to meet up. So when you ask for the commitment, when you ask for the date, she's going to agree. So you give her like a little bit of a contingency thing of like, oh, cool. Like, not like I won't answer that until you take the date. Like it's a negotiation. It's like, I'll answer that when we are on a date. Like, so it's future state. Okay. So then that way, and then you could be like, yeah, so the short answer is X, Y, Z. Like, what do you think about that? And then you'll see if she responds to the meeting up part. And if she does, be like, okay, cool, this, that, whatever. And then after that, you could be like, listen, I'm going to head to bed soon. I don't know what you look like on Thursday night. Like, I really, like, as I said before, I would really like to meet you in person. But again, it's one of those things where if you have to implore those tactics, like, is she somebody you want to meet up with anyways?
Right.
Because now you're just trying to go for a clean record. Now you're just trying to like, I want to get every date that I can. And that's to me, like, because I'm with you, man. Like, sometimes I think about, is it even really worth it for my text game to be that good? It's like, no, because I only want to date women with high interest. When you and I talked the other day, I told you I had matched with a girl on a dating app, really attractive, seemed pretty chill. And I think I texted her just a little bit too much before the first date. And after we got a little bit too lengthy in text, that went from us building good rapport and a good connection to her blowing me off for like 4 or 5 days. And then she texted me back on like, Wednesday, after she blew me off for 5 or 6 days. I didn't answer her. I don't care. Like, I'm not going to date somebody who can't communicate or answer me with like, and be respectful, because I always answer people. So it's one of those things where it's like, might even been a good thing that she did that, because now I didn't go out to dinner or drinks and kind of waste my time and money. Right. I only want to pursue women that are, 10 out of 10 interest in me. I'm kind of past the whole chasing thing.
Sure. Well, going back to this gal that I was just like, fuck this. And I just unmatched her. I mean, a lot of it too is, there's a couple things with it, right? There's one, she wants me to text who knows how long before she'll feel comfortable enough to meet up in public where there's lots of people. It's totally safe. No one's getting raped at Olive Garden. I did a whole video on that too. I don't know what Olive Gardens you're going to, but not the Olive Gardens I go to. But it's also like, it's a test of their ability to be led too, right? Because I kind of feel like a man should take the lead in a relationship. And so it's sort of his responsibility to have a plan, to set that date, and to set the tone. And if he says, it's almost like a test of interest too. So when I say, when are you free to get together? And then she gives me a whole bunch of runaround, it's like, okay, you're not very compliant. I don't think, even if we did finally meet up, I don't think I'm going to enjoy our time together. So yeah, a lot of that too is just like you said, like, do I really want to waste my time with someone like this? And I feel like those types of responses to my, well, when are you free to get together, is like, well, let's put a pin in it. Well, how about we put a pin in this whole fucking thing?
Yeah. Like, let's put a pin in it for Thursday night at 8. Are you interested? If not, like, I'm all set. It's like,
Yeah.
It's like, what's it all about? Like, why are you, to your point, why are we matching? Why are we talking if you don't want to meet up? And you made a good point earlier. You said a lot of, so I won't even say, I think it's a significant portion of people on dating apps. I won't say it's the majority because it's definitely not the majority, but a significant portion of women in particular that are on dating apps. And I know that this is true because on a profile like or a dating app like Hinge, which is one of my favorite dating apps, I think you can meet some solid quality people on there, like good people on Hinge, it's not as much like a hookup culture kind of thing. But on the prompts, there's like prompts you fill out. There's like a little header and you fill in your answer to the prompt. And I can't tell you during how many women's profiles I've seen during quarantine and through COVID. It says, there's a prompt that says, I know it's time to delete Hinge when. And their answer was, when the pandemic is over. Okay. That doesn't, number one, that doesn't make any sense. Number two, the reason why that is dumb to put on there is because a guy with a brain is going to realize that you're like, I'm bored and I'm looking for attention and I'm looking for someone to entertain while I'm sitting at home, not going out, not doing anything. Like,
yeah, I'm not a dancing monkey, Sandy.
Yeah, and also I'm not gonna impress you. I'm not gonna impress you in the Hinge instant message DM. Like, what do you want me to do? Tell you jokes? Like, it's just one of those things where like, I don't really know a lot of guys that would be on a dating app just to get validation and attention. But clearly there's women on dating apps that are like, I just want some guys to swipe on me and tell me I'm attractive. Or the ones, and do you know Levi Washington? Do you follow Levi on TikTok?
No.
He's got a pretty good following. He's definitely I think 300,000 followers or something like that at this point. But he's more of on kind of like the philosophy psychology thing. He does do a lot of like dating and relationship content. And, he kind of made a good point to post earlier. I think it was like, he's like, listen, like 40% of guys are swiping on profiles, whereas like there's only 5% of guys that are getting swiped on profiles. It's really that like big of a difference. Mm-hmm. And there's like a lot of red flags to look out for on dating apps. And one of them being, if you see a woman that doesn't necessarily have her social media linked, like not like the @ but linked in the profile, but she's got her @ in the description, she's just looking for followers.
Yep.
She's just looking for guys to go to her Instagram and Snapchat and follow or send her messages. And like, definitely avoid dating women that do that. Like, it's not, you're serving a purpose. You're not there because she wants you there.
Yeah. They're marketing. They're using it for marketing purposes. Yeah. I've seen that plenty of times too. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. That's, women on dating. One thing that I can't stand with the pandemic was, I think Bumble did it. I think Tinder did it. Maybe, I don't know if Hinge did it too, but they opened up they call it their passport feature, where you can, connect with anybody worldwide. And they did it for everybody so that you could have a texting buddy during quarantine. I was like, what the fuck is the point of that? Yeah. I'm not going to want to talk to a gal in Argentina, like I'm on a dating app to delete the dating app eventually. It's
sure.
It's such a pointless thing. You mentioned you get people asking you what you think of certain dating coaches, and I immediately thought of Canada's dating coach, Chantel, the 3-month no kissing rule lady. And I've done a stitch on her stuff, and you commented going, this is absolutely mind-boggling to me, but I wanted to know like more in depth, like your thoughts about Chantel. I mean, because she's written lots of books. She does give certain good advice to women, I think, like you need to compliment your man and actually show him some appreciation, which I think a lot of women don't realize that they need to do that. But that 3-month no kissing rule just really sticks in my craw.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. I'm kind of 50-50 on that situation because TikTok only puts things in front of you that you're either going to like agree with, engage, or piss you off. So it's kind of hard. It's hard to like, I think it's a little bit of a isolated incident. So it's, I can't really comment on her personally because I've watched probably 7 or 8 of her videos. So I have got no overarching theme of her. I will say that 50% of the time I'm annoyed, and then 50% of the time I'm surprised. Like, there's certain creators where when they put out a video, I know where they're going with it. I never know where she's going with her videos. Like, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Maybe I need to think more out of the box. But to your point, I'll watch a video and I'll think she's about to like dog men and be like, wow, screw this guy if he does that. And she's like, no, you just need to be more patient and respect that your man is busy and making money. And I'm like, okay, I guess I can kind of agree with that. And then there's other ones that are like, don't kiss, like you said, don't kiss a man for 3 months. And if you give him any kind of intimacy, he's probably just going to leave you and dump you. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't know. Hey, different strokes, man. Maybe if it works for some people, I don't know. I mean, I guess one thing I'll say is if you're a guy and you're really, really, really like patient and that desperate for a relationship, I guess it could work. I don't know, man. I would never do it. I mean, if I get to a second or third date and I haven't kissed her, I just feel like there's something wrong. Like, I feel like there's just a miss there, unless she said to me that like, I'm into you, but I've got these beliefs that I don't want to do anything physical for a month. But I can't really say that I've ever dated somebody that it went well, where the first 2 or 3 dates we hadn't at least kissed and it went somewhere. So I think that rule is kind of weird and arbitrary.
Yeah. If I don't get a decent kiss on the first date, I'm done.
Yeah.
Because I like in Corey's book, he talks about it where that's sort of like the ultimate test of interest. But even before I read these books and stuff like that, I've told this story a bunch of times on the podcast and in TikToks. I went on a date with this really hot chick. It was like the first date I had been on since I got out of my last long-term relationship. And I was always one of those people that I was waiting for some kind of written invitation from women, some overt sign that they wanted to be kissed. Otherwise, I just wouldn't do it. I just didn't want to take the chance. And so we went out, we went for coffee, we walked around the block, and then I was like, okay, well, and, give her a hug. And on my way home, she texted me going, I'm really disappointed you didn't try to kiss me. And I was like, what the hell? And so after that, I was like, you know what? Every date, if I like her, I'm going for a kiss. And so that's been my motto since then. And then Corey talks about in his book is that it's like, the ultimate test of interest. So at the end of the date, if I go in for a kiss, 99.9% of the time, it's going to work out great. And, you'll get women that are super receptive to it. Every once in a while, you'll get a chick that's like, they'll give you a peck or something where you're just like, okay, she's not that interested.
you get the side hug goodbye.
Yeah.
That's
or they'll just,
an awkward one.
Yeah. They'll turn their cheek or something like that. And then okay, she's not interested. And then I just don't really call her again after that. But then I know. So the whole going 3 months is just completely out of the question for me. But I could see if you're one of those people that your goal is to get married, you have that sniper mentality where you're only dating one person at a time and you're only dating super religious chicks, then that might work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that you might have some success with it, but it doesn't mean that in all other aspects of the relationship, you're going to be compatible. And it doesn't mean that it's going to work out. Like, I'm not like, again, sex is not everything in a relationship. It's important, but it's not everything. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it should be happening regularly. And if it's not, there's probably something going on there. But I think it's one of those things where if you're waiting 3 months to kiss somebody, at that point, you've already determined that the whole physical side of the relationship, it doesn't matter as much as anything else, because you're saying that like, I've put everything else as a priority and the physical aspect of a relationship doesn't really matter. It actually comes last. So unless she's got some scientific research to say why that's the case, then I just would disagree. But hey, maybe she does. I don't know.
She talks about, it's hard to get everything into a 60-second video. And I obviously haven't read her book and I don't think I will, but because it seems like it's geared towards women anyway. But she talks about, there's certain chemicals in the body. And when you kiss, you produce these hormones and it ends up being like crack. And if you, I don't know, she does talk about scientific shit, but
firmly disagree. Yeah, cool. It might be scientific, but people need to understand that there's sociological conditioning and people are just not okay. Sex and intimacy is not the same as it used to be. Think about it. 100 years ago, if you had sex with somebody on a first date, it would probably be like blasphemy, Now people have sex on first dates all the time. I mean, to be very honest, between me and my clients, just anybody who's ever had sex on a first date, had a one night stand, whatever, a lot of those don't result in anything. A lot of those result in never even talking to that person again. So you're telling me that kissing someone is going to pump all this oxytocin and vasopressin through your body that makes this cocktail of I'm going to be a fool after this? That's not true at all. That is not true at all. People will frivolously have sex with other people and never talk to them again. So the whole like you kissing me thing and I'm going to be clouded by judgment and act foolish is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Okay. It just practically makes no sense. It practically makes no sense.
Okay. No, I agree. 100%. All right. So we're at a little over an hour here. I just have like just a couple more questions. So one of the things I usually ask, fellow students that come on, once they get on this path of learning this stuff, what kind of advice would you give someone just starting out? So I'm going to ask you as a coach, someone who decided, you know what, I want to get better with women, or for women that listen to the show, I want to do better in relationships with men. Like, what kind of advice would you give someone starting out on that path?
So yeah, that's a great question. So for men, the number one thing that I need men to understand is that you need to be more patient. You need to relax. I can't tell you how many guys are like before the first date, like, oh my God, this girl is the one. I'm so interested in this girl. It's only physical attraction at that point. It's only physical attraction. You need to be patient. As a guy or as a human with anything to offer, you need to understand that if you have something to offer as well, all of your chips should not be all in on the first date or after the first date. You can be excited. You can be, very happy. You could be looking forward, adamantly to that next date, but you can't possibly know that you want to date and marry that person. So guys got to be patient. And for women, since women tend to have more guys coming to them and more options, women need to be a lot better at filtering out guys and seeing things that can be a problem or a red flag and identifying those before you get too invested in the guy. And we talked about it earlier, just kind of with that top 5% of guys that have a lot of access to a lot of women because of their attraction and status and money and power. Just because a guy has those things doesn't mean he's going to respect you. And it doesn't mean he's going to treat you well. So women need to keep in mind that you shouldn't overlook the nice guy on paper, right? You shouldn't overlook that guy just because he's not as alpha and as cool and whatever as the other guy. Because the guy who you think might be a 10 out of 10 for you, if he's not treating you like a 10 out of 10, you should not be devoting your time to that person. So since women do have usually more options in dating than men, women should have the ability to filter out the guys that aren't going to treat them, with respect. And kind of closing on that, the Jordan Peterson thing that I talked about earlier. Yes, you probably want a guy with options, but you need to have a guy with enough restraint to not pursue those options if you want a real relationship. So I think for men, it's about patience, and for women, it's about identifying which men are going to treat you well, despite the fact that they have options.
Okay. No, I think that's great advice. Okay. And then the last thing I usually ask these guys, I ask pretty much everyone that comes on, it's since you've read How to Be a 3% Man, I'm going to ask you, what does being a 3% man mean to you?
Okay. Being a 3% man to me is being able to understand that we are also the prize, but kicking the mentality that it is our job to bend over backwards to please other people in dating. Like being a 3% man is having confidence and owning the fact that we as men have a lot to offer. We don't get bogged down by this, this societal thing that like men are inherently dangerous or bad or aggressive or toxically masculine and all this stuff. And understanding that, like, yes, we are also the prize, but getting your game to a point where, since you know that you're the prize, you can be patient and you can make good decisions as well. So I think being a 3% man is owning the fact that you've got something to offer and being able to be patient and, pick the right woman when she comes along, not just picking the next attractive woman.
I got it. That's a great answer. All right, Evan, famous one named celebrity here. I appreciate you coming on, man. And if ever you want to come back, you have an open invitation.
Yeah, I want to come back. That would be great, man. I appreciate you inviting me on.
Awesome, dude. All right, we'll talk to you later.
All right, man. Take care.
Evan, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime. You have an open invitation. I love your videos. I get a lot of insight from you. I feel like we're on the same page on quite a bit of stuff, although you're way more professional than I am. But I'm just a student, though. I'm just a student. I don't do this for a living. You do this for a living. So that's my excuse. Well, I do the podcast, but I'm not a dating coach. I'm just a student. So I appreciate you coming on. You guys definitely follow Evan. I've linked to his TikTok account in the comments. He just has so much great tips and tricks and recommendations and just a wealth of knowledge. So definitely follow him on TikTok if you don't already. All right, guys, I guess that's it. We'll catch you next week. Thank you for listening to Come On Man. If you're new to the podcast, I highly recommend reading How to Be a 3% Man by Corey Wayne at least 10 to 15 times. I recommend you watch his coaching videos on YouTube, and I recommend that you engage with other 3% men in our 3% Man Facebook group. Links to all of these are in the show notes. If you like this episode, please give us a good rating on your podcast platform of choice and share with all of your bros. Now go out and get it.